Welcome to WI Tech Talk Podcast. I am Greg Palmer, Director of Technical Resourcing at WEI. We are coming to you live today from Startline Brewing Company in Hopkinton. We thank them for allowing us to come and use the facilities today and drink some of their delicious beer. And joining me today is Jeff Cassidy, Director of Cybersecurity Operations for CyberTrust Mass.
Hey Greg, thanks for having me. Thrilled to be here back with you guys. I manage the Cybersecurity Operations Center for CyberTrust Massachusetts. CyberTrust is a newly formed not-for-profit, and we have a dual mission. So first and foremost, we're helping to secure the municipalities across the Commonwealth, as well as small businesses and other nonprofits. Our other mission, most important for our conversation here today, is to help grow and diversify the cyber workforce. We're doing that through an extensive partnership with member area colleges and universities from across the state. And our model is to hire interns from those universities and place them into a live SOC where they get hands-on skills and expertise to get them job ready post-graduation. There's, by some estimate, upwards of 10 to 12,000 vacancies in cyber jobs alone just in Massachusetts. So helping to grow that market, helping to add new workers to it, primarily at an entry-level role, is really key to making sure that the small businesses, large enterprises, municipalities, nonprofits, et cetera, across the state can all maintain cyber resiliency.
And what do you think is driving that? So given the outrageous number of vacancies we're seeing, is it growth in cyber? Is it vacancies being left by people changing? Where is it coming from?
A lot of the vacancy, I think, is forecasted demand. So some of that vacancy exists now. Some is a forecast in terms of what vacancies are going to exist if we don't start backfilling the workforce now to be able to fill those jobs with trained, skilled workers when those jobs open up. A lot of this is fueled by technology innovation like AI, machine learning. A lot of this is filled by evolving technology stacks, right? So there's new technologies now that we need more trained workers for, anything from SOAR to new cloud platforms and cloud security stack, ISPMs, CSPMs, you name it. As more technology, more niche areas of cyber focus come into play, we need more workers to backfill the jobs that were vacated by senior cyber engineers moving into these newly formed roles to make sure that we're not dropping the ball on the, say, keep the lights on cyber initiatives.
Right, so a little bit of all of the above.
Yes, completely.
Right. So then what do we do about it, right? So it's a challenge across the board, not only in Massachusetts, but in the country, but we're focused on Massachusetts right now. There's, I think, a lot of education that needs to go on at the corporate level on what is happening and how to address it. But, you know, given where we're both coming from, we're kind of both chosen to start at the entry level. Why do you think that's the most important, or is it just the best way to address it for now? Do we need to pull youth into it to gain more exposure to it? Why is it important to start at the beginning, I guess?
The entry-level roles generally can be filled with knowledge from higher ed or adult learning. There's a lot of interns coming through our program that aren't your typical intern. They're late in life career changers, they're workforce re-entry, et cetera. They're military vets coming back and finding these full-time jobs. Cyber is obviously a natural progression for those military vets returning. The idea of backfilling in the entry-level role comes from the enterprise theory of promote from within. And those who have been with a company will move up, take the more senior skilled jobs, the more sophisticated ones requiring more advanced knowledge internally. The entry-level roles, whether or not it's IT risk analyst focusing on the GRC type tasks, SOC analyst work focusing on triage and ticket reviews, even help desk analyst, desktop support analyst, PC technician type work. These are all pathways into cyber well suited for entry level, where they have the knowledge, they have some foundational skills, but not necessarily the advanced experience to know how to implement and solve the problem. They're working on maintaining the solutions to the problem.
As far as the right type of individual to make that move, Is there a difference? Is there a different makeup of an individual that you think to be successful in cyber versus just some other general IT roles or career changers?
For those just starting out, the one distinguishing characteristic that will make those successful comes down to the growth mindset. So when you say, I don't know how to do that, as long as you put the comma and the yet after it, they're going to succeed in this role. So it's that ambition, it's that desire to keep learning, that motivation to succeed. You got to have a little bit of a technical mindset for some of those roles, but not everyone has to be hands-on keyboard 24/7, reverse engineering malware or creating your own intrusion detection signatures, right? There's plenty of work in cyber that doesn't necessarily evolve around having this engineering technical mindset, right? So in terms of who's the right person, anybody out there listening to this is the right person to get into cyber. Whether or not you have a degree from a prestigious four-year university, master's, PhD, or you're just graduating from an associate's degree or career re-entry, as I mentioned. Anybody can get into cyber if you want to. It just takes the right degree of ambition.
Yeah, right. You call that growth mindset. We term it attitude and aptitude, right? If you have the right attitude and aptitude, skills are attainable, skills are fungible. People can gain skills, but if you don't have the right personal makeup, it's difficult.
Absolutely.
So there are some programs out there addressing that in addition to both of us and what our organizations are trying to do. You know, in my experience in when we designed our apprenticeship program, we went out and kind of looked at what was existing and how they were operating, how they were executing, what conversions rates were, and really learned in that process that a lot of the models out there are what we call throughput. And what I mean by that is they want to put as many individuals through the program as they can, educate them, get them the skills and certifications that they need. And then the hope is that there's a job to be had after the fact. We kind of took a different tact on that, learning that, you know, some of the conversion rates of some of these programs, while all great missions, all great intentioned, aren't always getting the conversion rates they want. A lot of them less than 50%. So we tried to kind of flip that on its head, where we wanted to focus on the conversion and making sure that the job was number one, because in our view anyway, the intent is to get these individuals jobs at the end, not simply train them up in the technology. So, you know, a lot of great programs out there with the right intentions, but not always achieving the goals that they wanted. So in this education process, there are boot camps out there. There are other apprenticeship type programs where they have a training focus, where there's not always enough on the job skills training that goes with it. So I think that same issue is trying to be addressed, where we need to put talent in the right place at the right time with the right skills. But how do we do that? And how do we do it most effectively?
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of the struggle for those trying to get into the workforce is they're competing with those that are already in the workforce, right? So if you're just graduating with your degree, whether or not that's a bachelor's or an associate's degree, you've got extensive knowledge from textbook, from classroom, maybe some hands-on lab work, some project work, etc. There's a few things that also need to happen to get those candidates ready for job one. So we think about the NICE framework, right? And it gets into those knowledge, skills, and ability. Higher ed, regardless of what level of higher ed, is fantastic at providing that knowledge, that background theory, the textbook approach. Skills, any type of skill, technical skill, any hands-on level skill, working in the field, actually doing the work, is critical and essential. So when you look at entry-level jobs, most of them, for entry-level work, I'm going to repeat that, require 1 to 3 years of hands-on experience to get an entry-level job. So the question then becomes, how do you get the experience until you have the experience?
Right.
So we look at internships, we look at apprenticeships, we look at these boot camp style things, and they're all designed to get to bridge that gap from knowledge to get the skills. And then the role of the employer for that job one is to provide the tasks and further develop those capabilities and the abilities so they can execute the job. So employers, I think, are hesitant for the most part to hire straight from college because it puts the burdening on transitioning from knowledge to ability, and they skip the skill development.
Right.
That takes a lot of time, that takes a lot of effort, that takes a lot of administrative overhead to start getting those new hires to be producing for the company, right?
Right.
So shrinking that time using programs, whether or not it's a WEI apprenticeship, and it's that try before you buy model, right? Of we'll put someone in the field, we can train them on your tech stack, we can train them on your technologies, on your business process, and then should they work out later, it becomes an ideal first-time hire. That burden of transitioning from knowledge to ability is no longer on the company. It's now on WEI, the apprenticeship, or the boot camps or other apprenticeship programs, or CyberTrust internship, for example, fits in well with that as well.
Yeah. In the burden that you talk about, it falls on the hiring managers of the individuals. And most of these technical managers started as technical individual contributors. And in today's day and age, they are still very much technical individual contributors, and oftentimes don't A, have the skill, or B, have the time necessary to spend with those folks to get them where they need to be, to get from that knowledge to skill.
And it's not just the hiring managers, right? So it's a commitment from the team. So you're taking time away from those senior workers in the job already that should be contributing. And now you're allocating that time for cross-training, mentoring, developing the new joiners.
Right.
So if we can shift that mindset so you're not cannibalizing on your own productivity rates
Exactly.
to train the new joiners coming into the job market, we can take that burden off of them so the company doesn't lose momentum and you get skilled and knowledgeable workers at the same time.
Exactly. That's great. So then, given that, let's talk a little bit specifically about the CyberTrust program and your internship model and how you see how that addresses what we've just discussed.
So as I mentioned, we hire interns from our member area colleges. We've got 13 of them at the moment. That number is growing and changing by the day, and we're thrilled to have the participation from our members. The approach that we've designed is, like I mentioned, bridging that gap from just knowledge that they get in the classroom to help further develop those skills. So leaving our internship, our students will have a resume with 8-9 bullets, and that's going to span IT risk analyst, governance, risk, and compliance work, typical Cybersecurity Operations Center work, you name it. And it's casting a broad net for the type of work, the number of roles that they'll be qualified to apply for. Most of our work is project aligned, project driven. We're teaching cognitive skills as well as the technical skills. So data analysis, public speaking, presenting to C-suite level staff, researching on certain solutions, as well as developing those solutions. So we'll actually get time with our clients, municipalities across the state, delivering our advisory services, working in the SOC on the back end, supporting our managed EDR clients for alert investigation and triage and data analysis and vulnerability analysis. And it's taking that classroom theory, putting them in a live SOC. This isn't a lab environment. They're literally contributing to the bottom line of securing municipalities.
That's excellent. Now, as part of the kind of educational process for the interns, are you training them on the tools that they'll be using in the SOC? There are a broad set of tools that you need to be able to execute as a SOC analyst. And I know that you have certain corporate sponsors that provide the tool sets that you need. How do they get acclimated to that? How are they learning to use the tools that actually apply the theory that they've known?
So there's one hand, there's the tool stack, the specific technologies themselves. Those will vary. If we can train our interns on learning the why and the process and becoming familiar with the tool capabilities, it wouldn't matter if it's one EDR or a different EDR. They're learning the capabilities of an EDR, how to deploy that, how to manage that, the types of telemetry you're going to get out of using those tools. As a hiring manager for the past 20 plus years in cyber, I've seen a lot of resumes. I've screened a lot of candidates, and you're not necessarily looking for that specific technology match. You're looking for the mindset of, I can learn that because I've learned this. And getting them to have that demonstrable level of skill, regardless of the tool, because tools come and go, they change. The tools that I was learning on 10 years ago don't exist anymore and no one's using them. The tools that our interns might be using 5 years from now don't exist yet. So the idea is that growth mindset of you can learn the next tool because you've demonstrated that you understand the concepts of what that tool is doing, whether or not that's an EDR tool, a vulnerability scanning tool, an ISPM, a CSPM, the tool brand, the technology specific solution. I don't think that matters as much. I don't think hiring managers are looking, say, we only want to hire people if they know tool X. We want someone familiar with tools in that stack to know the capabilities of it, the business process, and the security drivers behind having that tool.
I think you may be a little more forward thinking than some hiring managers. And the other part of my job where we are doing staff augmentation and full-time hires, we run into a lot of folks that do have that technology bias, where if they don't see the tools and the technology they want, they don't like it. I think it's a mistake. And I think that the growth mindset that you talk about, and from our side, the attitude and aptitude is really what matters. I think if you think about your career and who you've dealt with in your life, people with the right attitude, aptitude, or the growth mindset can be successful. And the tools aren't as important in that case. I think it's a good time to talk about specifically what WI has chosen to do to address the situation. So we developed the WEI technical apprenticeship for diverse candidates. We really think that the two key things that we're trying to address here is number one, the skills gap for early career folks. And number two, from our perspective, the diversity gap in technology roles in general. And then, as discussed prior, when we looked at the models that are out there attempting to address this with the goal of conversion at the end, we really took it from the opposite perspective. We didn't take the perspective of, let's see how many individuals that we can get trained. We looked at how many jobs we can get. So our apprenticeship model starts with a client, starts with a role that they need to fill. And we then go out, as discussed, looking for the individuals with the right attitude and aptitude. Well, how the hell do you tell that? We thought long and hard about that. And we came up with some partners where you can, assess that, right? So we designed a specific assessment for the specific role that measures the personality traits for someone that would be successful in it. We give that assessment to anybody that's interested in entering the apprenticeship program where there's already a role in place to ensure the key indicators of what would make them successful are there. We work with the client to understand the role. We work with them to understand the culture. We work with the hiring manager to specifically design a training program specifically on the technical stack and the technical tools that the individual is going to use. And we train them specifically on that. And that's opposed to some of the throughput models that we talk about, where there's a static education component where you attend a level 1 security analyst boot camp where everybody learns the same technology and it's static and they go all education and then they're dumped into an environment. We take a little bit of a different approach where we try to make it iterative. We think about how these individuals learn most effectively. So we've taken an iterative approach where we give them bite-sized pieces of training throughout the course of a year. We start at A, give them a little bit of table stakes so that when they show up, they can be effective. They're going to be on site at the client, sitting with the team in the role that they're going to be in at the end. We give them some training, let them go back on site, apply the training they learn in real life situations, pull them back out, give them some additional training, and so on until they reach the end of the year. The other thing that we found that's been very effective is to give not only the apprentice mentoring, but the hiring manager that mentoring. As we discussed prior, most of these guys and women are still running around with their hair on fire, individual contributors, and don't have necessarily the bandwidth to make sure that they're providing development opportunity for these individuals. So by adding that mentorship, A, for the apprentice and B, for the hiring manager, we found that it facilitates the communication. It's difficult sometimes for these folks that are transitioning in to feel comfortable asking for help, to feel comfortable putting their hand up when they need to. And with these individuals, managers running around with their hair on fire, don't always have the insight into what the apprentice's experience is. So we've added that as a key component. And then really at the end of the day, it gives us the opportunity to course correct prior to anything really going off the rails. If one apprentice is falling behind in a certain area, we can address that early on to make it go the way it should be going and address any concerns as they occur.
It's an interesting model where internships and apprenticeships can be viewed as sort of staff augmentation.
Mhm.
So you're sort of like taking like an existing team, high functioning, high performing, with a vacancy of a certain skill set. And that works out well to place the apprentice. But you guys seem to have taken that a step further, and you're not just doing staff augmentation, you're doing manager and training augmentation.
Yeah.
And you're coaching the manager as you're going through this. You're sort of training the manager on how to manage incoming junior staff, set reasonable expectations for how they're going to learn, how they're going to grow, how they're going to master these technologies. So you're sort of being an extension of the manager for that new hire, for that apprentice coming in. So it's not, here's an apprentice, good luck.
Right.
It's, here's an apprentice, we're going to work with them on your mission, your technology, your stack,
Absolutely.
your business process internally. You're going to be an extension of that manager and help to oversee and grow that new hire that they need, but probably don't have the capacity in-house to get seated and up to speed as quickly as they need to.
100%. And it adds that 360-degree accountability, right? You've agreed to this. You've signed up for this. You're telling us that you believe in it. We have a young, committed individual. Let's make sure we're doing all our part to make sure it can be successful. So really, this is kind of a, WEI is a minority-owned enterprise. Our CEO, Belisario Rosas, is really passionate about ensuring that we continue to pay it forward and focus on diversity initiatives where it makes sense. And it's just another extension of, WEI's value add. We're a value-added reseller, and what that means is to differentiate yourself, you have to give white glove service. You got to go above and beyond just being a commoditized offering. So that's kind of part of the fabric of who WEI is. It comes from Belisario and Leslie straight down. And so here we are today. And thanks to them for having the foresight and the willingness to support it. But yeah, Jeff.
Hey, Greg, you mentioned earlier in the conversation about your conversion rates. For those listening, can you just sort of take a break and define what conversion means? I know internally as an apprenticeship and an internship, we understand conversion, and that comes down to placing those departing into a successful full-time role. How do you measure that trend over time?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's how we measure it. So to us, conversion means placement at the end of the program, right? So for us, in the course of the apprenticeship program, 5 years to date, we've put 150 individuals through the apprenticeship program, and every single one of them has gotten the placement with the company that they completed the apprenticeship with at the end.
That's fantastic. That's a great number. That's on calculation, 30 apprentices getting placed into full-time jobs on an annual basis.
Roughly, that's correct. Yes.
That really helps to sort of fill that cyber pipeline of making sure that the companies are getting the skills and the knowledge workers that they need into these, sometimes niche market jobs even, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, when we talk about niche markets, one of the things that we've done in the past, which people may not think of when we're talking about these things, is really niche technologies in end-of-life technologies, right? So we've been successful in the past in placing apprentices in mainframe computing, mainframe storage, COBOL. We all know that back in the day that those mainframes are ironclad, but the populations that know that technology and continue to support it today are aging. It's not being taught anymore. Large financial institutions still rely on it heavily. It's still mission critical to them. And, it may slowly begin to move to the cloud, but what do they do in the interim?
Your ability to find, train, upskill, and place those that can learn that or already know that has to have a substantial impact on internal recruiting firms or external recruiting firms in terms of time to find the candidate, time to hire that candidate, the amount of money it costs to go find the candidate from paying recruiters,
right,
getting someone in seat day one working that's going to be trained by WEI that knows those technologies. So that has to be a huge cost advantage even from the hiring company's perspective.
Yeah, 100%. So it's not even that. We talk a lot about fishing versus farming. They can't even fish because there's nobody learning these technologies anymore. So so
this comes down to WEI doing the farming on behalf of that company as an extension of their workforce development team, and you're really bringing in new talent into the workforce that's capable of learning that or already knows that and having immediate success when they're placed.
Right, 100%. And the time to close, it's a 0% transition time, right? So they finish the internship, the apprenticeship, and they begin the job immediately. We typically know, 6 months in to an apprenticeship if it's going to be successful, because we've had the opportunity to work with the apprentice, mentor the apprentice, work with the hiring manager, see how they're progressing. And as I said, 150 placements over the past 5 years, we've successfully been able to make sure those conversions occur.
And that personal touch has to mean a lot for the hiring manager, where you're not basically
Yeah.
an external recruiting firm saying we have this bench of people already and one of them might be okay in your company. So they're learning the culture, they're learning the environment, they're learning the internal unique business processes, and you get to make sure that they're going to be a good fit on multiple dimensions before making that decision to hire and commit.
And it really removes a huge barrier for a lot of these individuals that don't want to or don't believe that they have the time to dedicate to the development of these individuals. The fact that we're stepping in and helping with that mentoring and helping with the mentoring of the hiring manager and the team as well really kind of relieves some of that concern of some of these clients where they're concerned about making sure they're going to be able to provide them the proper care and feeding during the process. So that mentorship on both sides for the apprentice and the hiring manager has really gone a long way, not only to the success of the program, but really lowering those barriers to entry with the client to say, we don't really have time to absorb that. We don't have the resources to dedicate to these individuals. It really removes that concern.
And I'd imagine that a lot of your clients may have a smallish size IT workforce internally, and as such, they might have a lot of single points of failure. So if you have someone who's the only person in the company who knows a technology or a process, and that person leaves for whatever reason, either voluntary or involuntarily,
right,
trying to backfill that person when you don't have someone else internally to train and upskill them to make sure they have those skills. So the internship/apprenticeship model is able to sort of grow that workforce on behalf of the future client needs and place well-trained, upskilled workers already.
Yeah, that's a great point with the size of our clients, right? Really, one of the key aspects of this is we wanted to make sure it was available to everybody, right? So when we talk about these throughput models where they're putting a lot of individuals through, they're putting 20 to 30 individuals through a cohort. Our apprenticeship model is designed where you can have a single apprentice. It's not cost prohibitive to do so. It's targeted for the customer. It can work for a team of 5. It can work for a team of 500, right? So it scales or it doesn't need to scale. So really, we design it for everybody. It's not just a situation where we're going to need to, churn out 30 analysts in the next 30 days. It's really focused on customer needs first. All right. Well, I just want to say thanks, Jeff, for joining us today on the WEI Tech Talk podcast.
Hey, thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me again. Thanks for having me back at CyberTrust Mass. We're thrilled to have WEI as one of our corporate members.
Yep, we certainly believe in the mission and we are invested in it, and I can't wait to see where we go together. Appreciate your partnership, and just want to say to anybody out there who's interested in learning more, you can get Jeff Cassidy or Greg Palmer on LinkedIn, and you can follow along to see what's happening, or if you have any interest, reach out to either one of us.